Hi to everyone who's also just joined us. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. We'll give a little bit more time for people to log on and tune in.
Jessica, could we ask everybody where they're calling in from today?
Sure. If everyone would like to, I'll kind of call out so we can have a little bit of organization, but if you'd like to introduce yourself and where you're from and why you're interested in listening in today, what you want to get out of it, that would be really helpful. Can we start with Carole?
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Yes, my name is Carole and I am from the UK. And apart from empowerment and ideas, I can't often think of anything else.
Those are big things. That's great.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly. Guyen?
Yes. Can you see me? Can you hear me well? Okay,
Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to hear you, Susannah. I'm Juliana from Brazil. I actually work as a research, but what I do, practically speaking, is lobbying. But there's a stigma around lobbying in Brazil. We do not use this term. But I work with the government of Brazil following some negotiation process within the Convention of Biological Diversity or the Convention on Climate Change. And I'm here to listen to your experience, and I'm here to learn and looking for advice.
I was a lobbyist too years ago, and I remember too being a little embarrassed to tell people what I did, but it's done because of course it's such a powerful job and it's so needed when you're working for the right issues. So I think that's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Okech?
There you go. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Jessica, for the chance. I'm Annete. I'm from Kenya, and I'm living in Nairobi. And I'm currently involved in the human rights and the policing sector with the government of Kenya. And I just want to learn more about including myself in the political field today. So it's a pleasure to be here.
That's awesome. Nice to meet you.
And just for those who have joined, we've asked if, when I call on you, if you could introduce yourself and where you're calling from and what you're interested in getting out of this talk today. So next I have Fadimata. If you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Fadimata. I'm based in Rwanda, Kigali. I'm originally from Mali, so it's a pleasure for me joining this conversation. So I'm interested in these conversations because I work in the field of adolescent empowerment, women's rights. I work for an NGO, and a lot of my work goes into this thematic, and mainly creating leadership skills for adolescent girls so that they can have enough, build the life skills and the self-confidence for them to later join, but also build that civic conscience at a very young age for adolescents to start realizing, recognizing what is threatening their empowerment or their future and stand out for it. So I'm really looking forward to listen and to hear from all of you. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That sounds like exciting work.
Thanks.
Who's next on my list? Irene?
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Okay, so my name is Irene, and I normally live in Germany, but at the moment I'm in Italy, back home, for a short period of time. And I'm joining this conversation because I work as legal consultant at the Secretariat of the Multilateral Environmental Agreement under UN Environment. I'm an environmental lawyer, and I really work a lot with national authorities and governments from several countries. So I think political skills are really something I'm interested in gaining at some point, and even improving the ones I have already. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Great, so nice to meet you, Irene.
Nice to meet you.
Asatu? If you want to unmute yourself. Okay, we can come back. Detus? Carolyn, you just joined us. If you want to introduce yourself and where you're calling from and what you're looking to get out of the talk today.
Sure. Hi guys.
Hi.
Carlyn, I live in the US. I live in Atlanta, Atlanta, Georgia. You know, I'm looking forward to hearing about a topic that is so relevant with it being election season. And, you know, hearing more about how, you know, women can be empowered to get involved, you know, what interests we should take when it comes to the political things that are happening.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yes,
Nice.
I'm already eating my feelings from all of the politics that are going on for the next 2 months. Umi? Do you want to introduce yourself? See, come back. Did I miss? I'm sorry, guys, if I'm mispronouncing names here, but Bose, Alini?
Hey everyone, I'm sorry I just joined. So are we just introducing ourselves?
Yes, and where you're calling from and what you're interested in learning today.
Awesome, awesome. So great to be here. My name is Abosede Alimi. You would see me as Jojogan also online. I'm calling from Lagos, Nigeria, and this topic is very close to my heart. I'm currently on a mission to increase women's political participation in Nigeria, and I co-founded an organization called Elect Her, where we're trying to do exactly that in Nigeria. Yes.
Oh, now let me just tell you, I know all about you because we have an Elect Her in the States. And I mean, that was that I saw. And I follow you on Instagram, and you all are so
awesome.
Active on Instagram, and I'm so impressed. So
yes.
Wow.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Juliana?
Hi everyone, my name is Juliana Makonise. I'm calling from Harare, Zimbabwe, and I'm really excited about today's topic because I'm interested in civic participation. I've had a few interactions with policymakers here in Zimbabwe regarding women's participation in politics and all. So I just want to learn how it's done in other countries. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
A couple people left. Meskerem?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we can hear you.
Good afternoon, good morning. My name is Meskerem. Hello?
Yeah,
how about now?
Yeah.
Good afternoon and good morning. My name is Meskerem I'm joining from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So today I'm joining because I want to learn from the personal reflections and strategies how to ensure that the equity and full participation of women, not only on the political setup, but also for other sectors like health and social. Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
And then I think last but not least is Christelle.
Good morning. Sorry, I just joined. What was the question?
So if you'll introduce yourself, where you're calling from and what you're interested in hearing today.
Okay, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Christelle Onwu. I am calling from New York City. I am interested in learning about women's involvement in politics. I currently work for a political administration, so I would like to learn more about, the need to have especially young women involved in politics. And also the speaker's journey. So I know that it's not always easy to have, women in political spaces. And so, what's the sort of experience that you have, and also what motivated you to create your organization? Thank you.
Wow. Okay. I'm feeling like we need so much more time than we have. I feel like I'm going to need a speed talk, but anyway, thank you guys for telling me what you were interested in hearing. I'll try to cover all of it.
And we also have Gladys and Verlaine, who you all know, who join us every talk. So I'll let them just say a quick hi.
Hi, everybody. I know a couple of names already, so thank you for joining us today. And as I say, Jessica, I'm really looking forward to this session. And even though I have 2 hours ride, I still wanted to make it. So thank you very much. And yes, hi.
All right. So thank you all for coming to this really timely session that impacts all of us all over the world. My name is Jessica Rowland, and I am the North America lead for Zahara's Dream. So with Zahara's Dream being licensed in New York, we thought it really important to be able to build the community in the United States and Canada and really diversify everyone that's involved in Zahara's Dream, whether it's the Be Powerfully Talks, Twitter, or our Mentor Mentee program. We really want to facilitate those relationships because, as we've seen from previous talks, these issues transcend culture and country and impact us all in all of our careers. So this fall, you'll be hearing from a lot of both experienced and young women in the North America region on various topics to be able to build that relationship between all of our communities. And I'm really excited to kick off this fall with Susannah Wellford. She has founded 2 organizations dedicated to raising the political voices of young women in America. She has founded and is the CEO of Running Start, which works to inspire young women and girls to pursue political leadership. Running Start furthers the work begun by the Women Under 40 Political Action Committee, which she co-founded in 1999 and led for 5 years. So just to kind of give you an idea of what Running Start is about, their training programs are focused on educating young women about leadership, campaign strategy, and teamwork without a partisan lens. And I've seen them personally in action. They go all over the world. These young women are amazing in what they're able to do. And so she wants to be able to give you her wisdom and what she's learned because she has worked all over the world with young women, again, from all over. So want to turn it over to Susannah to hear from her about the importance of women and girls and inclusion in political leadership, because the global gender gap report actually from the World Economic Forum says it's going to take us 99 years to reach gender equality. So women's political participation and leadership is essential in addressing this gap. So welcome, Susannah.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was such a kind introduction. I am going to go relatively quickly, and I'm going to try and stop with plenty of time so that we can really delve into questions. But that said, this is my favorite topic. I have so much to talk about. anyway, it's going to be hard for me to skim over things. So as Jessica said, Running Start is a nonprofit organization whose goal is to make sure that young women understand we need them in politics and that they are perfectly capable of being strong, competent leaders. And so we're trying to create a pipeline of young women who are going to get into politics at an early age and move up the pipeline to real power in politics. I probably do not need to go over the statistics about where women stand in the United States and in the world. I think if you ask most US citizens how America's doing in terms of getting women into politics, they would be very optimistic, and they would say, yeah, we're probably 50-50 men and women in politics, because there's so many examples of strong women like Hillary Clinton, right now like Senator Kamala Harris, and so they tend to overestimate how many women we have in politics, when in fact we have less than 24% women in Congress. And even though we've had some excellent progress in getting more women elected, not enough women run for office. And in the US, that is our biggest problem, in my opinion, is that we're just not seeing the same numbers of women run for office as men. So how are we ever going to get to equality if we can't get more women to run? So what Running Start does is we plant the seed in an early age that, as I said, women have what it takes to be in politics. We have a really simple message. And while all over the world, there are so many things holding women back from politics that are frankly much harder than in the US. There's the threat of violence. There are deep cultural norms that say that women shouldn't run. And there are structural barriers that keep women out of politics. So I want to acknowledge, I know that all of those things are a huge factor that are keeping women out of power around the world and in the US. But what Running Start works on is a more internal barrier that is keeping women from thinking they're the right people to run, from thinking that politics is something that is a sphere where they could have influence. So Running Start works on 3 of the things that keep women from running: lack of confidence, lack of the skills that they need to be leaders and to feel confident as leaders, and then lack of connections. And I'm going to briefly touch on all of those things. But I want to just say first that for millennia, men have been in power, as we all know. I mean, and that the work that I'm doing, it sometimes feels so slow to me, because we're training girls as young as 13 years old, and they might not run for office for 10 years. But what the world is trying to do right now, we're trying to have a cultural shift, a massive cultural shift that shows that women can be in power. And probably more importantly, that shows the excellent, amazing, transformational things that happen when you do have women in power. And I would love to get into that in more detail, maybe during Q&A, but it's the fact that when you have leaders who are all coming from the same place, like US Congress, it's mainly all old white men, then the points of view are so similar, you're not getting new ideas. And so the more women you get into office, the more young people you get into office, the more people of color, the more people who come from backgrounds like LGBT or people from disadvantaged communities, or anybody who's outside of that small inner circle of the old white male. Those are the people who are going to help make our country stronger, because they are bringing those new ways of thinking and new ideas. Okay, I've written all these notes because I want to make sure I hit all the points. So so give me a second from time to time to make sure I'm not missing things. I want to just really briefly take 2 minutes just to tell you what Running Start, like how we work. So we, until March, when the entire world went crazy, we brought in-person classes of young people, either in high school or college or recent college grads. We would bring them to DC and we would do in-person trainings. And until March, I have to tell you, I would talk to everybody about how trainings need to be done in person, because you need to look people in the eye, you need to have that personal connection. And it has just been the biggest awakening for me to realize that trainings can work so beautifully like this. You know, and so we transformed everything that every program that Running Start does over the past few months. We normally do a high school program that is 50 students. They all come to DC. They stay for a week at Georgetown University, and we train them. And this year we had 80 students. They were from all around the US, but also I think we had 6 international students, and we did the program virtually over 6 weeks, and it was beautiful. And it worked really, really well. Okay, so I'm going to just go through the 3 points that I talked about. We call them the 3 C's: confidence, capabilities, and connections, and just tell you all a little bit about how we see these as the barriers that are holding women back, and then how we combat them. Confidence. I want to tell you just a little story about confidence. So when we ask people why they're interested in being part of our programs, or why they feel they're not reaching their goals and they're being held back, confidence is the one. Like, that is the thing people say. Every once in a while they have other reasons, but for the most part, people say, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. I'm not a good public speaker. I don't feel confident in front of people. And so that's really the number one thing that Running Start works to address, is to convince these young women that confidence is something that you don't have to be born with. It is a muscle that you can flex, so you can grow it and you can improve it. And I think that, so I'm 52. I had to think about that. I would think that most of you guys are much younger than I am. And it's maybe sad or maybe heartening to know that my peers, the women who are my age, we all still battle these same things, even though for years we've understood, like, we need to fake it until we make it. We often have done amazing things, but we still have that voice in the back of our heads that says, am I enough? Am I good enough to do this? And so what Running Start does is we talk about confidence as a barrier that you can overcome. There's a great book called The Confidence Code. I don't know if anybody has ever read that book, but it's by Claire Shipman and Katty Kay, 2 American journalists. And they are the most polished, accomplished women that you've ever met. And the whole book is about how they second guess themselves at every stage of their career. And that they did a lot of research on confidence and realized that confidence really is something that, if you work at it every day, if you do exercises, if you do the things that can build confidence, it really is like a muscle that can grow stronger with time. Oh, somebody says that she's much older than me. Really? Okay. Well, you probably know what I mean, that little voice in your head really doesn't ever go away. So I think that it's really important for people to realize that that voice that you have that says, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, everybody else is better, that it's just a voice. And that almost everybody has it. Men have it too. Of course, men have it too. But with men, it doesn't hold them back as much. Women tend to have that voice and then we don't act. Men have that voice and they act anyway. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to encourage in the young women who come to our programs is, look, I know you feel like you're not good enough, but we're going to tell you you are, and you've got to shut that voice down. I want to tell you, oh my gosh, I'm already getting short on time, which is so sad. I want to tell you just 2 quick stories. One, when the pandemic started, I got together a group of the most amazing women in my network, and we do monthly calls. And these women, their resumes are so incredible. Like, they've gotten to the top of their careers. And we've done 4 of them. Every single time, one of them will call me after the call and say, how did I do? I feel like I didn't belong in that call. Everybody was so accomplished, and I feel like I said stupid things. So I just want to tell you guys, it never goes away. And what your job is to quiet that voice and to tell that voice, you know what? Everybody feels this way, and I feel this way too, but I'm not going to let it stop me. Okay. Oh, and I just want to tell you one other really quick story. We had a student who was in one of our very first programs, and I talked to her. She was a woman who knew that she wanted to do big things in life, but when I asked her what her plans are, she's like, I'd really love to run for office, but I'm Muslim, and she wore a headscarf, and she's like, so there's just no way that anybody would ever vote for me because I don't see anybody like me who is in power or running for office. This is a woman in the United States. And so we all talked to her and basically said, if you don't do it, then there won't be anybody. So it's your responsibility. You need to be that first person and set the example. And she called me 6 months later, and she had just started college, and she'd run for student government, and she'd won. She'd been the only woman running. She was one of the only students on her campus who wore the hijab. And she said, she had this barrier that said, I'm not the right person to do this. And then was able to win her race because she walked past that barrier. And I think that all of us have different barriers. We all have different things that are holding us back. And it's such a good exercise to think, okay, what is that barrier that's holding me back? What is that thing that says I'm not good enough to do this? And then recognize it and move past. So one of the best ways to move past those barriers and to increase confidence is to have experience in difficult skills. And so with capabilities, our second C, we train every young woman who goes through our program in the skills you need to be leaders. These are skills you need to be leaders if you're going to do anything. If you're going to run your own business, if you're going to run a club at school, but everything we do has a focus on politics. The reason, of course, is that if you get to the top in politics, if you have power in politics, you have so much more ability to change things and to actually create a better world for people. So you all probably all know what the skills are you need to lead. You have to be able to be a decent public speaker, or at least a good, compelling public speaker. You've got to have a message. You have to have a message that's articulated, that resonates with the people who you're talking to. And moreover, it really helps if people understand why your message is important to them also. In America and in many parts of the world too, to different degrees, you have to know how to ask for money. You have to know how to fundraise. And most importantly, I think you need to know how to network. Because you could be the best candidate in the world, but if you don't have a network of people to help amplify you, then your voice is not going to get out there. So what we do at Running Start is we have lots of exercises where we put our participants in uncomfortable situations, in situations where they have to do very hard things that make them uncomfortable. And as I'm sure everybody on the phone knows, when you are forced to give a speech, to stand up on a stage, to speak to a reporter, whatever it is, it can be absolutely paralyzing thinking about it. But once you do it, you grow a little bit stronger. And so when I was in my early 30s, I was working for a law firm. I had a really great job. And on the side, I was running this political action committee that Jessica told you about, that was helping young women get into politics. But I was not the president of that. And in fact, I had to do no public speaking in any portion of my life. But so 9/11 happened, which was a big moment, of course, in American life. And my business, my law firm, started losing money because their clients were in businesses that got hurt by the disaster. And I got laid off from my job. And so it was, if any of you guys have been laid off, it is such a difficult and life-changing thing. So I got laid off from my job, and I was trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my life, because I was going to stay at this law firm and be a lawyer. And the woman who was the president of WUFPAC called me up, and she said, Susannah, do not look for a job. You need to run the political action committee that we started together. And I remember I went into the bathroom in my house and I paced. I'm sure I looked like a total crazy person. That's why I was hiding in the bathroom. But I just was like, okay, I know I should do this because I care about this so passionately. But if I do it, I'm going to have to talk to reporters. I'm going to have to do public speaking. You know, I'm going to have to step onto stage from behind the scenes. And it was so incredibly terrifying to me. And I remember, so I decided to do it. I decided to somehow take that leap and do it despite my fears. And honestly, like the next week, there was a speaking engagement I had to do. The first time that I'd really spoken in public. And I was absolutely, totally terrified, even though, I mean, let me just tell you, I had over-prepared so extremely that, you know, I should have been the absolute best person on that panel. I was not great. I stumbled. I was just, I'll tell you, I was not wonderful. Afterwards, I felt euphoric because I'd done it. And I never had to speak in public for the first time again in my life. And so that's what we try and do with our young women. We want to give them that experience that helps them to overcome their fear of these very terrifying things. And when they do it, they get better. And then the next time is not that difficult. And there was one great example. I mean, there are probably a million great examples from our programs, but one that just sticks in my mind so clearly is we had a student who stood up actually during our talent show, and she decided to do spoken word poetry. And she did it. She was not great, but she did it. And she went off stage, and somebody came, one of the students in the audience came and got me, and she said, I think you should go check on Maya. So she's out in the hall, and I've never seen a panic attack before, but this girl is white and she's got her eyes closed and she's shaking. And I put my arm around her. I'm like, Maya, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And she literally can barely talk. She's like, that was awful. It was terrible, horrible. Okay. And this happens, right? I'm sure some of you guys have had this happen to you. I hope you haven't, but it's pretty common. So here's the deal. So she had done it and it had been a horrible experience for her. The very next day was graduation, and we had chosen 7 students to stand on stage and give a speech in front of like 400 people. And randomly, she was one of the people. And so I realized this the next morning, and I went up to her and I'm like, listen, you don't have to do it. You don't have to speak because I don't want that to happen again. Like you're off the hook. Like that was such an extreme example. And she said, I've been talking to some of the interns and everybody tells me if I don't get back on that stage, if I don't do that, then that will become the thing that I never can do. And this girl who had had the panic attack the day before got on stage and gave this absolutely beautiful speech about why she wanted to run for to become president of Argentina when she gets a little bit older, because that's where she's from. So capabilities and confidence, you need to nurture those things in yourself so that you can get over the barriers that hold you back. And then the last one is connections. You know, in politics, as in so many other parts of life, if you cannot amplify your voice, if your voice just stays right here, even if your voice is so powerful and so strong, then you're not going to get anywhere. So one of the big things that Running Start does is we create lots of opportunities for our young women to get in arenas where they can use their voice. And Jessica was talking about the delegation that we took to this conference in Iceland. The young women got the opportunity to actually stand on stage in front of, I don't know how many people were there, Jessica, like it was a really big audience, like 400 plus people. One of them was asked to be a moderator. One of them was asked to sit on a panel with these much older, much more accomplished women, and they rocked it. They did so well. And it's not because they were, you know, better than any of the rest of us. It's because they had really internalized this message that somebody expected them to do this thing and believed that they could do it and that they had the power to do it. And so they decided to believe it too. And so all of these, I could say so much more about connections, but I see that we're getting a little bit short. All of these skills, the confidence, the capabilities, and the connections, they are so incredibly important to your path to power. And political power, you obviously, you need to look confident, because you need for people to believe in you and to know that you're in control and that you are going to be the person who can solve problems in a crisis. The capabilities, you know, like I said, you've got to be able to have a message that resonates with people. You have to be clear in who you are and what you believe in and how you're going to help people solve problems. And then the connections, you guys are so lucky, because when I was coming up, we didn't have, you know, almost everything was in person. We didn't have all of the various ways that you all have to connect with people. And so it's really important for you to build a great online brand. Use every platform you can to showcase your message, to showcase who you are. So with our young women in high school, you know, like I said, they're 15, 14. They are not running for office anytime soon, but it's never too early to start building your brand, to start broadcasting to the world who you are, what you believe in, and how you can help people. And I want to just tell you just a little story. So I'm just trying to think how to make this story short. Okay, so in terms of connections, one of the most important parts is asking people for help. So you can use all of these platforms on social media to get the word out. You can go door to door. You can go to networking receptions, both online and in person eventually again, and meet people. But eventually, one of the biggest parts of networking is you're going to have to ask for help. You're going to have to make yourself vulnerable and ask people to have coffee with you, to look at your resume, to give you advice on things. And I'll tell you, I didn't learn this lesson until, I mean, it's embarrassing to think that I was like 35, but I think that I was. I think for most of my young life, I thought I need to show confidence. I need to show that I don't need help, right? That I understand how to do things, and that they should have confidence that I've got it. And the truth is, none of us really have it. Right? I mean, that's none of us at any age is in a position where we can't be helped by other people. So the biggest advice that I give to all of our Running Start students is you have to start early, asking people to help you, asking people to meet with you, asking people to share their paths with you so that you can learn from them. And I want to just tell you this is the story that I'm going to try and make really short. I went to speak at a class at American University. This is now years ago, and talking about why women should run for office and why they should start early. And there was a student in the class who got in contact with me and said, can we meet for coffee? And, you know, so I met for coffee with this young woman, and she told me that her dream was to run for office in upstate New York. So we talked about it, and I gave her some advice that frankly, I had just made up on the spot, but she took it, which was, if she wanted to run for office at some point in the future in her little community, what if she, during her college break, went up and knocked on some doors in a safe manner, you know, like had somebody else with her, knocked on some doors in her community and didn't ask for money, you know, and didn't ask for anything, but just said, I'm thinking about running for office in this community when I graduate from college, and I want to know what issues matter to you. What do you all care about? Because when I run, I want to make sure that I'm addressing those concerns. And I couldn't believe that she did it, but she did it. She knocked on doors, she gathered information. People got to know her in a very approachable way, right? When somebody knocks on your door and they're like, I'm running for office, I need money. That's hard. You do have to do that too, but it was nice that she got to start a little bit earlier. And so she ended up running for office, and she did not win, but she's actually been talked about as somebody who's an up-and-coming star, and I think that she is going to run again. But my point, I guess, about this woman, Morgan, is she came to hear me speak. She got inspired by the idea of running for office, and then she took that next step of calling me, having coffee with me, and then she just took it and ran with it. And I think that so many of us, we gather business cards, we meet somebody inspirational, and then we never do anything about it. And so it is, politics is all about people. It is so important to make yourself vulnerable by asking people who you admire to help you. And a lot of them are not going to say yes. And this happens to me too. I've actually been doing this recently. I'm trying to find really excellent mentors, and I'm trying to, for my students, I'm trying to get out of my little bubble and find new people. And, I send cold emails, and often they do not get answered. But that's okay, because you have to ask many, many times before you get what you want. But the really important thing is you have to ask. Okay, and then, you know what? So actually, I'm going to tell you takeaways, and then we could open it up for questions. And if you all don't have a lot of questions, I have a lot of other things I could talk to you about. So, so the takeaways from Running Start are: you're never too young to run for office. You're never too young to do big things. And I think that the world is starting to wake up to that. And there are so many spokespeople who are really, really powerful. I'm thinking about Greta from and all of her environmental advocacy, and then all of the young women who were elected to Congress in our last U.S. election in 2018. Some of whom, like AOC, are really, really young, and they're changing the way things work in Congress. So you are never too young. Okay, the second one, it's such a no-brainer for everybody in this call, but we need more women in politics. We need more women in power all around the world at every single level. But sometimes when people talk about leadership, they skip politics because they think that, I don't know what they think. But I mean, I think people think politics is something that is sort of unmentionable or not totally respectable. And okay, maybe our systems are not great in politics. Maybe they're corrupt. Maybe it's a thankless job. But if we don't get in power, we're never going to have full rights. So we have to do what it takes to get into power and to encourage other women to get in power. The third thing, ask for what you need. Ask everybody. Send cold emails to people who you think are amazing and tell them why. But if you send 20 cold emails to incredible people, emails. You guys probably are not on email. You're probably doing things like you're DMing or writing little notes on Instagram. So do those things, but reach out to people and ask for help. Flex your confidence muscle. So try and do something really, really hard every day, because it gets you used to doing hard things. It shows you that hard things are not going to kill you. And then the last one, I mean, it's so difficult, but shut down that voice in your head that says that you can't do this, because I feel like I'm talking a lot of psychology to you all when we're really, what we're here to talk about is politics and running for office. But this is the really, really important first step, because if you don't build up this person, this strong person inside you, then it's very, very difficult to get people to believe in you to run for office. So I will leave it at that, so that we've got a little bit of time for questions. And I'm happy to talk to you all about anything and everything.
Thank you, Susannah, for such a breadth of expertise and wisdom that you've shared with us today. The importance of diversity and leadership, the importance of fundraising and asking for what you want, and the 3 C's, confidence, capabilities, and connections, which is what Zahara's Dream is also about. So the synergies between the 2 organizations are amazing. Before we go into questions from the group, I would like to raise one, because I saw it on your website. If you could explain to everyone what the hashtag I look like a politician campaign. For everyone that's on Twitter, it's hashtag I look like a politician. So what that is. And then a question that was raised by a couple of people in the chat already is this question about what they can do to stop that voice about their confidence. So any kind of tools or tricks of the trade that you would recommend?
Yeah, I look like a politician. The idea is to write that on a piece of paper, or we can send you a thing and take a picture of yourself holding it, because we want to show the world that politicians do not have to be white. They do not have to be male. They do not have to be old. They do not have to be Christian. They can be anything. And that's something that, you know, the role model effect is really real. If you look up and you don't see anybody that looks like you, you think, I can't do this. There's nobody like me there. And so that's what I look like a politician is. And to the question of how do you shut down that voice, I'll tell you one thing that has really worked for me. I think I told you about how I got together this group of amazing women for these phone calls once a month since the pandemic, or they're not phone calls, they're Zooms. These women are so supportive of me. They are so supportive of me. We talk about what we're struggling with. We talk about personal stuff. We talk a lot about job stuff. Most of them also run organizations. I can't emphasize enough, get a group of women together who can support you, and then be real about meeting with them. Like, don't just, you know, make it a once a year thing. Like, meet with these people on a regular basis and choose the people who are going to lift you up. Choose the people who you are a little in awe of because they're doing great things and they make you want to be a better person. Because being in their company shuts that voice down for me. I look around and I'm like, even though I told you, they still call me and they're like, did I do a good job? I don't know why I'm in this group. It doesn't matter. Like, it's still, they're in the group, and being in that group gives them a sense of that they belong, that they're, that they can be confident. And I talk to myself all the time too. I literally talk to that voice. I'm like, that is that negative voice in your head and it's not real, and don't believe it. So that sounds crazy, but it really helps me.
Great. So now, if others have questions in the group that you would want to raise, I will leave it to you. Yep, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Susannah. You know that I'm very, very excited. One question that I have is, how can I make people see that getting more women into office is actually good for all of us? So the point that you made about, you know, people just don't touch politics. So it's similar in Nigeria. We kind of have those role models who have done really well in entrepreneurship, in their careers, but it's just not the same in politics, right? But when you start to talk about women in leadership, in political leadership, I feel like people just zone off. It's almost like, let's not bother, right? Let's not worry about it. But how do we let people know that talking about women in politics is because we want a better life for everybody, which is what all of the evidence points to? So I think that that's the case that I'm not able to make until we're able to prove it. Does this make sense? Yeah.
No, it makes total sense. And so often what I'll do is I'll talk about women in the business world, or diversity in the business world, because in the business world, there are great studies that show if you have a board that is all the same experience, old white men, they're not going to make decisions that make the company as profitable as if you have a board that is diverse, has people from all different parts of life. So yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. In politics, there's a lot of sort of anecdotal evidence that when you have women in office, there's less corruption, there's more collaboration, you know, and there are some examples of women legislate more on issues that aren't really getting a lot of attention. But I wish somebody would do some research that was just absolutely, totally airtight, that said, when you add women to politics, this is what happens. And not just for the women. It's not just good for the women. It helps society as a whole. And I think that for now, often, yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm talking about the corporate world, or I'm talking about anecdotal evidence as opposed to evidence that would really make men stand up and say, oh yeah, this is about me too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just gave you my email in the chat because we should
Yes,
talk about our separate.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I look
Good.
forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
Another question? Now's that time to build the confidence.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Hi, Susanna. I was just sitting here nodding and nodding and nodding again. Thanks for sharing. I just want to say that through the work I do, one surprise we found recently, although we had anecdotal evidence for this, is the importance of this confidence that you said, the importance of all this combined skill, you know, the ability for public speaking, the self-confidence, and the connection, the importance of these three factors on girl as young as any age, right?
Yeah.
And how that is impacting girls' learning outcome. So we had studies and very strong studies and research studies that consistently are coming up from crazy places like Somalia, Afghanistan, which are showing us how these three aspects are important in girls' life, nurturing them from very early age. So
Yeah.
I hear you about what you said about starting very late. And actually, we are all starting late. And the reason why we are all starting late is because this was not nurtured. It was not nurtured for us to speak and raise questions.
Right.
It was not nurtured, and we are not supported to be self-confident. So this is really important, and I really admire the work you are doing with these very young girls, very young adolescents. What you are doing is you are not only impacting them to be future political leaders, but you are already building their lives and the stones that they need to step up to get there in their lives and have a vision and be able to have that collective ability, you know, to stand up and to speak up for themselves. So this is very, very interesting for me. Thank you very much.
So Fadimata, that's such a good point because a lot of the women will talk about the sort of the cultural mores that say women are not supposed to be bossy. They're not supposed to be ambitious. They're supposed to be softer, gentler. And this is something that, especially, you know, a lot of the women who come through our program, they have this fire in them. Like they want to do big things. They want to use their life to do good for people. And they struggle because they don't get encouragement from their teachers, from their peers, sometimes from their families, and culturally too. I mean, you know, in the United States, with the election of the campaign of Hillary Clinton, that was such a lesson in how women just can get eviscerated when they speak up, when they're strong, when they try to do big things. So yeah, when you were saying at any age, we start in high school. Our youngest girls are 13, and I wish we could start in grade school. Like, why not start just right in the very beginning, talking to women about, you know, you are just as good. You can use your voice. You can be strong. And frankly, okay, if you really want to know what I want, here's what I want. I want us to start talking to girls earlier. I also want us to start talking to boys. And I want us to start talking to boys at a really early age so that they understand holding women down holds your entire country down. And this is true probably every place around the world. And that if you see women as your partners, true partners in power, then life is going to be better, you know, for women, for girls, but for everybody else too. Yeah, but I don't know anybody really, like little groups are doing work with men, but there's not enough work being done with men to change culture.
There is a lot happening through positive masculinity. There is this global campaign, like the He for She campaign. So there is a lot happening. But more and more, I agree with you, more and more we have to connect every time we think about empowering girls and speaking to girls, mainly at a very young age. We need to also speak, and that's what we are seeing also from some of the work we are doing, where from the time you start speaking to the boys, it changes the whole perception, and even the importance of not only putting the the whole responsibility on the girls themselves to change the world around them, because at home they are told to be quiet. At school, the teacher expects actually, we hear a lot of time teachers saying, oh, the good girls are supposed to be shy. So, when you see a turbulent, a very noisy girl, that's not a good sign for a good girl. So we have to work on the teachers, we have to work on the communities, we have to work on the boys to be good allies, but also to support, mainly support girls at pre-teen age, because by the time they are already teenage boys and girls are turning into puberty, there is already this gap that has been already created, and we see that's where that gap that has been created keeps widening as both gender grow. So it's really important to have that joint support, but also it's also really important to work on the environment to create that enabling environment for both boys and girls to collaborate in a safe way, because in many places the collaboration between boys and girls is seen only as a bad thing or a potential harm for the girls. So demystifying that collaboration and demystifying, and for boys to also accept that they can learn from girls, girls can be allies, girls can be partners, and building that life skills at a very young age is very important.
Yeah, well, so I had totally forgotten about He for She, and they do really good work. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I wish I could have many nonprofits doing lots of work, but hopefully there'll be more work in that area. Christelle had a really good question, if we have time for that. So Christelle was talking about, for women of color, how can they often don't have the proper connections to attain their dreams. I think that I got that right. So more and more we are talking about how, like, Running Star's always talked about women in politics. Let's get women into politics. But the truth is, a white woman going into politics faces totally different barriers than a Black woman going into politics, or a Hispanic woman going into politics, etc. The barriers are different. The culture is different. And so I think that role models are really huge with that. Finding women who can be really strong role models. And I say role models, I do mean that, but I actually really mean mentors. Finding people who you really admire and whose path you think you can learn from, and getting connected to them. I think that that's one of the huge things. I think that going to trainings, Running Start has lots of trainings. There's so many groups now that have trainings for women in politics, but so go to those for sure. But then, I think it's really important to go to sort of affinity group trainings, finding a group that is working with women who share your same issues. Running Start works with this group called Higher Heights they're actually based in New York, and their whole goal is get Black women in America elected. So I think that there is real power in being in a room with people who are sharing your same lived experiences, because they can help you to find those connections. Okay, and then the last thing about that is, I am also a really big believer that you can't just silo yourself with mentors and connections who look like you. You've got to have a broad base of people from all different diversities, because that's how you learn. If you're just in your bubble, then you're not going to know as much as the people who have a network that is really, really diverse, and they're learning all sorts of different things from different people. But thank you for that question.
And I'm just conscious of time, so I know of 2 questions that are left. So I'll go ahead and let you take the one in the chat box, and then I'll turn to the last question.
Oh yeah. Is that me?
Oh, yes. Sorry. You'll be the last.
Okay.
This is, what approaches would you suggest when connecting with people in politics, especially if you're a young woman? Is there any code or perhaps an approach that could be more powerful for women?
Oh my gosh, there's been so much research on that. I mean, in the US, there's so much research on how to, if you're a woman running for office, how you should dress, how you should, how strong you should be versus how, I don't know, womanly or whatever. Yeah. And I throw a lot of that out. And the reason is, I think that the most powerful people running for office right now are the most authentic. They're the least expected people to run. AOC, I think, is a really great example because nobody expected her to win. She comes from the most unlikely background, right? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, in case you guys don't know AOC, she was really, really young. She is pretty. Like, she had a video of her dancing on the roof. Like, she looks like a girl, right? And it's people like her who say, you know what, I've got important things to say. I am powerful. My voice is really needed. And to me, that's what you need, as opposed to some handbook that's like, your hair needs to be shoulder length. You need to wear pearls. I mean, because I'm not joking about those things. Those things are really real. Or, you need to be tough, but don't look aggressive. Just get out there and be yourselves. And that is the most important thing, because I think if you're trying to be some type, you're going to fail at it. So, don't use a lot of profanity, although frankly, you know what? Interestingly, there's some of the new young politicians, Rashida Tlaib, I don't know if you guys remember, she had a quote about Trump that had a word in it that is not usually in the paper. Starts with anyway, but be yourselves. That's the main thing I would say. And Joanna?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for talking with us today. And I like to hear, well, I'm interested in everything that you've done up until now. But my question is really an open question about the political landscape in the United States, because I am an American. I'm from California. It's a special part of America, but I live on the East Coast, and I follow the U.S.'s efforts on the Sustainable Development Goals, and also the he for she movement, and also how little the United States and pick any politician, how little the U.S. political landscape is focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals, which means that there are so many active people who, their SDGs that they work on, but I've never, ever heard any politician in the US talk about the Sustainable Development Goals at all. Even the ones who I know. What's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. People don't even know what they are.
Exactly. And so even the ones, I mean, like, I know Arnold Schwarzenegger knows about the Sustainable Development Goals. I know that there are a couple senators who I've met personally who I know work on them, but the gender push, the he for she, I think it's, I don't want to say we are lost, but it has been lost so far to the political landscape or to the public. And so this means that from here out, there are whole, there's a generation of people who could be doing something about them. Maybe they're working on gender equality without the hashtags, but so what I'm trying to say, I don't know if you have an answer for how to get the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, more off the tip of the tongue of the politicians. But even so, like you mentioned, Tlaib, coming from Trump, there's a whole contingent of people who talk about the squad, and so like they're powerful women who are doing the right thing for their community, who are doing the right thing for Palestine, or standing up, doing exactly what we want them to do, being themselves, being authentic. But then they're labeled as the dark forces, when it's actually exactly the opposite. And so, in DC, you probably see a different kind of, you see something different from what some of us may be seeing. But I mean, I guess it's not really a question, but if I were to make that into a question, how do we move the Sustainable Development Goals, or even just this he for she, to a greater dissemination point and not just, you know, and not just like tweeting and hashtagging from the youth, because, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been lucky enough to speak all over the world, and the embarrassing thing is often be speaking in front of a group, and they'll say, you know, tell us about how you're doing it in America. And that country has done women's rights, women's power so much better than America. They have more women in office. They have more women have more rights. And gosh, I wish very much that the U.S. was more outward looking, and that we would work more closely with other countries who figured things out that we haven't figured out. So I don't know the answer either, Joanna. I think that it's really important that Americans become more world citizens. But how to do that?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry to cut you off. I think, I mean, see, since it doesn't seem to be coming from the top, you know, I'm looking for a way to circumvent that, or what is close to the top, but not, you know, who could the allies be? I mean, you know, but I guess this could be transferable to other country situations. Who is almost at the top, but who knows what needs to happen? You know, how can we get to those people who are getting up there? You know.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, part of what Running Start has done now for years is we have an international component. So we're still mainly about getting more power for women in the U.S. because, like I said, the U.S. is a big problem. But it is also great for them to get the experience of meeting people. Like this summer we had Vietnam, India, Uzbekistan. I can't remember where else, but that international perspective, being exposed to people at a young age from different countries who have different experience, that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
you for understanding me.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I realize it's 11:06. We had one final question if you have time.
Sure.
Okay, last question, everyone. And this comes from Irene. I noticed that many times young women in their early 30s are not really supported when they aspire to grow in their roles and get to leadership positions, because there is a belief that they will soon step down to prioritize their own families and children. How do you combine those aspects?
Oh, Irene, I love that question so much. And I'll give a relatively short answer because time is short. But yeah, so even the high school kids will ask me about how do women do it? How do they have a family? Like, I want to have a family and do it. And the truth is, I mean, like so many things, the busiest women are often the women who get the most done. So, you know, there are so many elected women in US politics who have young children. I don't know if you guys know about Katie Porter. She's another one who was elected in 2018. I'm going to get the story slightly wrong, but she's from California. She's a single mom, and the dad's not in the picture. She has 3 young kids, and she commutes to DC for Congress every week. And I'm sure that if somebody had come up with a scenario like, could somebody do this? You'd be like, no, of course you can't do that. That's crazy. There's no way that can work. And it does work because she has a team of people who help her. Her children, I mean, this is the story, but I think it's probably true. They know that their mom's doing something really important to help lots of people. And so what I always say to these women is, you can do anything you put your mind to. When I started out working at my law firm, I knew I wanted to have children, and I knew I also wanted to work really hard and have this great career. And I asked for what I needed, which was I needed to be part-time. I made my own schedule. And would every business have said yes to me? No, they wouldn't have. But the point is, I asked because I figured out what I needed and I asked for it and I got it. And I think that so often we shut down that conversation in our own minds before we even have it. We assume it's not possible when actually so many things are possible that we would never imagine. I mean, another awesome example, she's not been in politics for a long time, but Connie Morella was a congresswoman from Maryland, and she had children, and then she ended up adopting her I think her sister died, and she ended up adopting her sister's children. She ended up with a family of like 8 or 9 children and was a congresswoman, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. You just have to figure out how. It might not be easy. You might have to let some things go, and maybe you're not going to cook home dinners every night and your house might not be perfectly clean, but that's my main message is you can do it. You just have to figure out how and set that intention. Okay.
So that is some wise words to end on. So everyone's got their list of things now that they need to work on for the next 2 weeks. I want to thank Susannah again for sharing her time and wisdom with us today. I know that it's been really beneficial for me, and I know for others, to be able to hear some of these key things that all of us need to put into perspective into our own careers. And hopefully some people were inspired today to hopefully run for office. And we'll have to check in on each other to boost our own our group and be our own sisters in empowering each other to do so. Just a reminder for everyone that we will be doing these talks every 2 weeks. So we will see you again on the 26th. And yeah, thank you, Susannah. Everybody.
That was so great. I really enjoyed the conversation. You all seem like such wonderful, thoughtful people, and thanks for inviting me.
Everybody can unmute themselves and say goodbye.
Thank you, Susannah. Thank
Bye,
you, Jessica.
Susannah.
Thank you, Zahara. Thanks, everyone.
Susannah.
Take care.
Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for being on, Carolyn. Jessica, thank you again. I really enjoyed it. It was a really fun talk.
I hope you get the feels that we get.
Oh my gosh. Well, you've got great people. You really do. Okay, thanks. Take care. Bye.
Bye.